All right. First of all, I again want to thank all of you for participating. It's been a long afternoon, but I feel very energized. I think my group, anyway, was spectacular. And I think what we'd like to do now is invite these reporters, as they were, the collectors of the best ideas from each of these breakout sessions to come up and share just very briefly what they would consider to be the highlights, the takeout messages from the breakout sessions. And I guess, Jesse, get off the phone. Oh, do we need to take a pass?
No, I'm ready. Let's
Okay.
go.
Okay.
Thank goodness Nancy Sutley is short. Okay. You all really look like you belong here. I just want to tell you that. So our group had a fantastic conversation. We started by answering the question of what is the goal of this environmental movement, and we went around the table and we said, it's to build a clean and renewable and just and sustainable movement, that we want massive historic levels of investment in clean energy, but we don't just want that. We also want to get rid of the subsidies that are going to dirty energy. We talked about the need to support young entrepreneurs. We had a lot of innovative ideas on the movement that we want to build, but we wanted to spend most of the time discussing what it would take from this administration to feel like we were really working together and engaged. And some of the ideas that we came up with are, we need more forums like this. This has to be the beginning and not the end. That the administration can help us by making some of that decentralized so that we have ongoing conference calls, that we as a movement can be helpful by making sure we're giving more people access to what's happening in the administration, that we're forwarding along information and updates, and those updates are going out, that we're using social media to engage people. There was talk about the need to try to bring people together around a common purpose like there was around the election that brought people together from lots of different issue areas, and that's a critical aspect moving forward. We talked about the need for more meetings with high-level officials in the White House, and I think there's a commitment on both ends to continue to make those things happen, and actually needing more engagement from the president himself on these issues, and for young people to be able to hear from him directly. I think the best thing at the end was that there is commitment on both ends to make this happen, that the folks who are in the inside used to be on the outside, so they get it. We as the people on the outside committed to work harder and build bigger numbers than we've ever built before, and the folks on the inside committed to making information accessible. And we learned that just because Van left, who was one of our inside heroes, we've got new heroes who were here all along, like Amy Salzman and Greg Nelson and Hannah and Cal Penn.
Is this one working? Do I have to go up to the podium? Good, I'll stay down here. Amina West was in John Carson's group. Excellent. Thank you. I'm sorry. And thank you, Jesse.
Good afternoon. Well, evening now, folks. Jesse said a lot of, what we found to be the case also in our seminar, in our forum. I would have thought that maybe she was listening through the wall. But that's a powerful testament to the fact that we're all on the same page. We're all excited and energized and ready to join hands and join arms and partner and build linkages, that support the networks that are going to advance the goals of this administration and our collective goals of energy, independence, environmental stewardship, et cetera. Excuse me. So just to make a more specific recap, we started out also saying that, the youth are at the forefront and the leaders of this, what needs to be a movement. That Obama's election was a moment, but there was a movement that elected him in a moment. And it's the movement that's going to need to carry us forward and, to bring about the necessary changes, and how we could really use Obama's support and Obama's reaffirmation along the way. We all acknowledge that Obama's busy. So we need to, it could be very useful for us to get regular or periodic interaction and access to other members of the administration, other members of leadership, to come into our communities, to come into our youth activities, come into our university centers and events to galvanize the message, to reaffirm the message, to give us that sort of support. We spoke about the power, of course, of social media, viral media, and using that as a way to connect our energy, but also to capture our power as consumers and as purchasers in the economy, and use that power to sway and to persuade big business to align and to promote and to buy into and to invest in better and more sustainable techniques for producing, using energy, and for being environmental stewards. And let's see what else. We spoke about also using or creating a mechanism for two-way interaction with the administration and representatives thereof, like CEQ. Perhaps the CEQ Youth Advisory Board comprised of maybe 20 or 50 folks cross-sectorally, cross-industry, and across the nation who could be points of contact and points of dissemination points that could be just in a click of a button and in the send of an email, be able to disseminate the messages and the movements that are going on internally within the administration. We spoke about, we reemphasized, again, bringing young folks, so K through 12, starting there and helping to inculcate an attitude and awareness around energy, around engineering, around food, around sustainability, and so that we have then coming out about us, because before we know, we're going to be talking, from from the standpoint of the Obamas and beyond, saying, I was of a generation that yada, yada, yada. Better to say that, I helped to create a generation that ushered in an era, that brought about the sustainability or the saving, the capture, the liberation, the sustainability of a global community. And so focusing energies and efforts on STEM education and using, our platforms in university settings and what have you to be an avenue for that. And I think that's, really using our savviness as young folks and our innovative minds, our ability, we're not so embroiled, hopefully, in politics that, if we have access to conference calls or if we have the opportunity to be in the room, we can say things that will not otherwise be said, for fear of partisanship or fear of, who's going to call me on that? The lobby's going to call me and yank the plug. We have a lot of power. Our voice is very powerful. And, it would be very helpful to have avenues that allow us to express it, both, within government, but also, in the corporate space and helping, my last point, I think we spoke a good deal about helping, using our power, using social media, et cetera, to connect dots and helping corporations and big business to see around the bend and to see that tapping into previously unrealized, underrepresented, and under-resourced communities and pockets of energy is their competitive advantage. So I think that's kind of, hopefully I landed somewhere in the middle. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you very much. Sujatha was in the group I was in, so I'll make sure she tells the truth.
I need the stool.
We're going to charge rent.
Hi. Okay, well, I think in our group, really the overarching theme seemed to be an enormous amount of energy to really help the administration tap into networks that already exist in our communities to amplify the exciting work that we heard about today. And so I think just looking at how to categorize it, I think it fell into two major categories. The first is things that are kind of cool that are already happening with the Office of Public Engagement and other outreach efforts that we could even do more of or even tweak a little bit for this issue space. So the first was on healthcare. There have been a series of conference calls that have really engaged. I think I was on a few that had, I think, hundreds, if not thousands, of young people on them that gave an opportunity to ask the White House directly questions about what the current state of the debate was and where the White House was at. And I think expanding that to energy, our group thought expanding that to energy in the environment space would be useful. Second is there are currently forums going on in the states that engage governors and stakeholders all over the country, and to actually do an active effort to engage the youth constituency in those forums would also be something that would be, seemed like a relatively easy add-on. Third was that there was an example of an agency providing a blog with a tailored response. I forget, was it you?
EPA.
EPA, yeah. There was one of the bloggers in the room had posted some critique or some comment on action by EPA, and EPA actually provided a tailored response to that comment, and doing more of that would also be, I think help build the relationship with the youth constituency. And then finally, in the kind of do what we're doing but better category was creating a dynamic platform where work on energy and sustainability and environment is housed in one place. And Amy brought up the point that exists for healthcare, but then we could also expand that to the environment. And there was a pitch for the CEQ website in the short term, but then we could potentially pull more stuff into a standalone website. And then on the new category, we also had the idea of the advisory board. The one issue that came up with that was that there are lots of federal regulations that govern how often a body can meet. And then that creates a whole set of other requirements. But one idea was that we could, as a youth community, create our own advisory board and then invite folks to engage on that from the administration, and that might sidestep a lot of those technicalities. And so that's something that would be, I think, interesting for us to continue to talk about. And then finally was the idea of doing some sort of monthly digest update that compiles a lot of the information that we heard today, and also gives a preview of things coming down the pike that then we could blast out to art networks to really bring people into the process. So that was our group.
Thank you very much. Rachel Butler. Great, thanks.
Hi, everyone. You look great. You do. So in our group, we talked a lot about the need to continue this conversation, the need to institutionalize a way of two-way communication between the Obama administration and the youth climate movement. There were a number of different suggestions that we came up with as to how to make this possible. The idea of conference calls was brought up. Again, the idea of a youth advisory board to connect leaders in the youth climate movement to the Obama administration. We talked about the need to, we talked about the work that all of the secretaries and the departments are doing on local work and the work that they're doing out in the field. We talked about the need to bring members of the youth climate movement into those events, into those discussions, and use that as a way to move our work forward. We talked a lot about the need for President Obama to lead from out in front. He needs to address the nation, and he needs to address Congress on climate change, on sustainability, on the need to move forward on this, and we need to get serious about the scientific realities. We heard a lot from the secretaries today about the scientific realities, and we need a plan and a timeline to get us to 350 parts per million in the atmosphere. We spent quite a bit of time talking about that today. We need a timeline. We cannot wait. The science is telling us that. We talked a bit about the economy, the fact that our generation has the highest rate of unemployment out there, the opportunities that that climate change and the current economic situation present to move us in the right direction, the possibilities of green jobs training programs, the use of stimulus funds to help move us towards a sustainable economy and a sustainable future. And I think we all recognize the great opportunities that lie before us and the necessity of two-way communication and continuing the great work that we started today and long before today. So great. That's it. Thank you.
And I think our last presentation is a pair, Lauren and Kiernan.
Unfortunately, both of us need this, so. So, actually, everything that was said was pretty much what our group said, but the biggest thing that we harped on were two things. One, unlikely partnerships. Like, what are those and what do those look like? And then how do we formulate those to really bring in people that aren't necessarily always at the table? And that's including organizations that are outside of the green sector. And then we also talked about education. And bringing in two parts to it. One, K through 12 being very, very important and what that means. And then also education for communities that are not necessarily, that are underrepresented and underserved, and how that in itself can help drive a lot of the solutions. And then I'll let Lauren, yeah, talk about the other stuff.
Okay, well, just to add on to the education part and the unlikely partnerships, the youth younger than college age is an unlikely partnership. And by targeting K through 12, I think we can really create a whole culture of environmental literacy, and that's where it really needs to start, and encourage entrepreneurship together. We actually had a treat of hearing from somebody in our group that was an entrepreneur in green technology, and we started discussing that and realized that there are very few incentives out there for small businesses or entrepreneurs that are looking to create these really interesting technologies, and a place that can be utilized to encourage that entrepreneurship is the K through 12 area, where they're engaging in really creative projects or testing these products and learning about environmental issues from a very young age. And we also talked about, in addition to entrepreneurship, encouraging the competitive spirit in America and really engaging people, not just from the youth climate organizations and not just from the White House, but everyone in between and all citizens to engage in a very competitive field that is emerging and get everybody involved. And another great concern, just like everyone else's, was the legacy that Van Jones has left behind, and luckily that there has been a legacy left in the White House. So I just wanted to share a little bit of information that we got from our leaders that I hope everyone else got, but just in case, if you want to be put on a listserv to get information directly from the White House, get your pens ready. Email youth. All right.
I think it should be, it's in your packet. It's in your resources.
Okay.
But it was in the handout.
Okay, well, that information is youth@who.eop.gov, and you can be put on a listserv to get that information. So part of it is seeking out that information and also having that transparency there to be reciprocated. So.
Thank you very much. And now John Carson. Oh.
I think she had a question.
One of our party notes in our group was, can we create, email list within our group, but can we create a listserv that includes all of us, who are leaders, who are active, who are aware in this space, so that we can also communicate with each other?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, just because when you look around the room, there are so many little organizations that are working on, each little bit of sustainability and environmentalism, and they're all great, but, we do need to come together, and not everyone can fly to Washington to have these forums. So, yeah, can we set up some sort of a system?
Would be super proud to help facilitate that. We'll get all your names on the list. We'll send lots of emails, and we will go fight to make this world better than we ever have before.
So maybe if each leader of each breakout group could collect that information, that would be pretty efficient, and get it to Jesse or. Yeah. There we go.
Before we do
After party. And John Carson, please come up and give us a final kick.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. This was an incredible afternoon, and thanks to all of you who are hopefully still following us at home. What I wanted to close, I wanted to close with tonight was to sort of take a step back and talk for a little minute about a word you hear an awful lot: change. And what does it really mean? I think that actually the best way you can measure change that's occurring is not by the arguments of the day, but by the things we aren't arguing about anymore. When's the last time we had a national discourse over whether or not women should have the right to vote? When's the last time that what was being fought about in Congress was whether or not we should have a 40-hour work week and overtime for more than that? Are we still fighting with corporations over whether or not asbestos and DDT are an integral part of our economy or not? And more recently, with the recent shift in administrations, we're here today talking about a clean vision for a clean energy economy, not whether or not energy efficiency is even a good idea or not, and whether or not we should open up ANWR for oil drilling. So sometimes you need to take a step back and take a look at the milestones of where the dialogue has taken us. But if you do look back at the fights in history, what you'll notice is that those key moments when things really changed, there were pitched battles over what was going to happen. We often look back at FDR's term or what Teddy Roosevelt did and just see the monumental shifts that were taken. But I encourage all of you, take a moment, look back at what happened in the Congress of 1933 and 1934, and just the vitriolic statements and fights that were going on over what we now regard as just complete common sense, that's the direction that our country went. And I encourage you to take a moment to stop and look where we are now. On the healthcare debate, for instance, we're fighting over particular pieces. Will there be a public option or not? But there are monumental reforms that are already a piece of what everyone assumes is already going to be happening. We're debating, is it going to be 14%, 17%, 20% reduction cap by 2020, not whether or not global warming is real or not anymore. So what I hope you don't lose, as we're so involved in those incredibly important details, is the big picture. And what this idea of a clean energy economy and the fundamental paradigm shift that would be in our day-to-day lives, and how incredibly crucial having climate and energy legislation pass this next Congress is to that paradigm shift. We often get so caught up in the details, but take a moment and think of what that will mean. And what I want to talk about is how we're going to get there and the incredible power that all of you have. This was an incredibly informative session for us. We heard directly from all of you, and we have a list of how we can do a better job of giving you the tools that you have. But my main message that I hope you all leave with today is do not wait for us. Go out there and get this job done. And I want to, thank you. I want to talk to you about the incredible power that you all have. And the first key piece of making this transformational shift is really each individual local example that all of you are fighting for. I heard some incredible stories, both in the questions today and the breakout sessions, of what you are accomplishing. And what I think oftentimes our generation doesn't remember is the speed with which you get things done. Those of you who grew up doing IM in grade school forget to take some time, talk to somebody over 40 about what it was like when they graduated college, had an idea, a vision of something they wanted to do, and the internet wasn't there to find 50 other people around the country who were making it happen or the ability to share their ideas. You take for granted, and thank goodness you do, the ability to get things done, find other people who are doing the same things. And don't underestimate the incredible persuasive power that showing people a real concrete example how they can create jobs in their own neighborhood, how they can create a healthier living style or an environment in your neighborhood, the incredible importance that plays in explaining to people what is this big debate that we're fighting over. The clean energy economy for each person is just their neighborhood, their life that they're leading, the job that they're trying to get. And the work that I heard about today, and your to make that real for people, and your ability to get that done is just incredible. And please don't underestimate the incredible importance of that. The second piece is I want to invite you to help us change this government itself. I had a really eye-opening experience about a couple months ago when I took a trip to Chicago and sat down with some people who were working in the environmental area in Chicago, and someone said to me, you know, John, I went into the local office of this particular agency that I'd been working with for years, and I was so happy when President Obama was elected, but when I walked into that office, I didn't see the change that I thought I was going to see. And I explained to him that, look, what we have done since we've been here is changed the leadership. In that particular agency, we changed about 4 people. And it is your responsibility to show up at that office twice as often, demanding the changes that this administration stands for with us. Changing the way the federal government operates, fighting this fight through Congress is an enormous undertaking, and we need everyone involved in that, and do not underestimate the role that you can have. A great example that I heard today, someone asked the question to me, what can we do about the Recovery Act and the fact that so many of the dollars are caught up at the state or local level? Well, dive in and help find the solution. Sit down with your city government. Sit down with your governor's office. Help them find a solution that works for you. What you take for granted in this generation of ours is if we find that solution in Los Angeles, we find it in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the ideas and the information are going to flow at a speed that we've never seen before, and you're going to be able to help us just dive in and make this difference. The final thing that I would talk about is, again, as we debate how we're going to get to this clean energy economy and what legislation is going to be like that gets us there, it is so easy to get caught up in those incredibly important individual details. But I'll tell you, the key to making that legislation as strong as possible is not to sit back and debate and snipe about who's doing what and are the right people involved. It is to demand action, is to demand to put pressure to make things happen. Because I'll tell you, those details, we can either get lost in the weeds fighting over those individual details, all incredibly important, but what will make the result the one that we want is this overwhelming demand, this pressure for action, which will, as the final pieces are figured out, the greater the pressure is to get something done, the better the final product, the most likely that particular piece that you're concerned about is going to end up the right way. And then we will pass clean energy legislation, and we will be in this new world with this paradigm shift where we're not fighting over the old debates anymore, and everything you're doing, trying to make happen, is going to happen at an exponential rate. So please go out there and make it happen.